Hey everybody, my name is Jonathan S. I am the CEO of Veramine, an endpoint security company. I just want to make a quick video today to talk about data export. Getting data out of our platform into external analysis systems really easily is something that's really important to us as a company. We really feel like it's not our data, it's your data. We want to make the data that our platform captures super easy to get out of our platform into your analysis platform. So I want to give you a couple options for doing that today. This is the regular Veramine web portal. All the data that the endpoint collects and is sent to the server is all accessible and browsable here and correlatable and cross-referenceable. You can click on any of these connected endpoints and show all the detail about that one host. On the left nav, you can click on the users tab and show all currently logged in users and all connected USB devices and all uploaded binaries and all the interesting detected anomalies, any response actions, all that you can access from the web portal. If we then go and click on one individual host, we see for that host all the processes and the full process tree, loaded drivers, network connections, SMB connections, all the users logged onto that host, the USB devices. We click on one process, we get all the detail about that process. The parent process, the PID, the command line, every loaded DLL, every network connection that process makes, the whole tree. And that all comes because the endpoint is sending these messages. And there's a bunch of them. We record, process creation and termination and remote thread events and image loads and user logons and logoffs, all kinds of metadata about the system, about the hardware, about the host, about the network connections, about the users and groups and disks and firewalls and all the file system activity and the devices and registry activity, network connections, web browsing activity, SMB operations, services, all the type of visibility that you could possibly want from your endpoint, we get from the endpoint to the server using these protobuf messages. And these are like super optimized messages. When we can shave off 4 bits off a message, we do it. And we've spent several years now optimizing each of these messages to show everything relevant. For example, the process create message, we show just like everybody in the space shows, the PID and the parent PID and the command line and the current directory. Of course, we show all that. However, we want to show everything we could possibly know about that process. And that looks like showing the flags, whether DEP is enabled, whether ASLR is enabled, but whether that's a protected process or this OS secure process concept, everything that we can get from Windows, we want to send from the endpoint to the servers. That's why these messages are like super detailed and in depth. We show the token of that process and the parent token of that process. But within that token, we'll show all the token flags, all the token integrity, the privileges that are enabled, and the privileges that are possible for that process. Because you could make some super clever detections based on any of these little bits of information that we can show you. So we're going to include as much detail as we possibly can in these messages sent from the endpoint to the server. We can then show what we feel like is the most interesting parts of that process create message in this process detail view. And we use some of the other parts for some of our detection algorithms. However, if you want the raw data, we can also give you that, and we can make it available in a number of ways. The main way we make it available is via JSON sent out of our system into external analysis systems. And that JSON ends up looking pretty huge, like this blob of JSON where everything is included. If we then convert this giant wall of text into formatted JSON, you can see that these JSON values correspond to those same structures from the protobuf message. We're just making everything we know about each process available to wherever we want to send it. We can send these JSON messages out to syslog. I like this website called Papertrail. It's just an internet-based syslog server that I use for testing. And here on this website, you can search for terms, and you can see some pretty cool stuff with syslog. But this is just an example of sending a bunch of image loads here, it looks like, for notepad.exe, that notepad process, out to syslog. And here's how it shows up, and then you can search and do whatever you want from the syslog messages here. We also know how to talk to AWS Kinesis Firehose, and here's a way you can configure the Kinesis Firehose. Here I've created a Firehose delivery stream called data demo. That is configured to write the data that's sent, these JSON messages, out to an Amazon S3 bucket. And so if you're an AWS shop, here's what you'd be used to seeing, and a whole bunch of logs in an S3 bucket, and this just the same JSON that you saw in the syslog example. Our biggest customers consume our data into Kafka. Kafka is a pretty reliable system. We actually use it internally between all the services we run on our servers and the services we run on on-prem servers. Our biggest customers often will consume all the endpoint data into a data lake of some sort, or a SIEM, and do detections based on that. Kafka ends up being a pretty reliable way to consume data. However, and that works great. However, you can also use Kafka as kind of a one-off way your analysts could subscribe to a subset of the events and run their own custom programs or custom algorithms. The way Kafka works, it can have many consumers of data. So I just whipped up a little program that consumes messages on a certain Kafka topic, a Vera integration topic, and runs whatever you want. So here's kind of what the code would look like, just a subset of the code to just, it defines what the integration message looks like, and then it just iterates over messages on this consumer. In this case, the way this structure, it knows the type and the server it came from, so it just looks for a certain message type, in this case process create, and it just does a printf. But you can imagine your analysts, probably the right way in most cases is to write rules in the SIEM or the data lake and build reliable production quality detections and intelligence gathering. But you can also just do a one-off thing and consume some messages that we send to Kafka and do whatever you want with it. So this has been a pretty interesting way to access specific bits of the data and to do custom things with that data that maybe your big production analysis systems maybe is hard to do. So it's just a couple examples of what you can do and how you can send the data out of the Veramine platform into whatever way you want to consume the data, because we want you to use the data how you want to use it.